Hello, Brazil. Hello. Thank you for having us today. I was at the hackathon for the past 2 days, and I was impressed by the impressive talent that's in Brazil when it comes to the implementation of Lightning Network. Bitcoin has come a long way as an asset, and it has proven itself as one of the most valuable assets to have in your portfolio. And when it comes to its function as a payment protocol, it was quite questionable over the years because of the high fees and the throughput involved. And the Lightning paper was introduced in 2015, and we've come a long way since then, when in 2018, its first implementation was put in the mainnet. And today I'm joined with a very impressive panel in the industry. We have here Kevin, Dan, and Facundo. So guys, maybe I can start with you. Kevin from Lightspark, you can tell us what Lightning means to you.
Yeah, I think Lightning is a way to actually connect people and to start to make it into a system where you can really stream money and move money as easily as you can move data packets on the internet today. And I think really payments in general are kind of anomalous in that they've kind of stagnated for 30, 40 years in most places. And Lightning is actually, I think, the next wave of making that real internet native money that can move in real time and settle in real time.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. We're primarily a custodian and we facilitate trading as a platform. And when I first got into this space, and obviously the title of Satoshi's white paper is Peer-to-Peer Electronic Cash System. And I feel like the market is still in the buy and hold and wait or trade and speculate mode. And reason I think that Bitcoin and Lightning are so interesting is because we can actually get normal people to start using it for something. Being the rails behind the scenes in some cases that everyday normal people can solve problems for cheaper, faster, better, and actually use Bitcoin as it's intended to be as a payment system.
I started with Bitcoin long ago, so I remember when we pay everyday things just like a coffee with Bitcoin through the mainnet, and then the evolution to BIP 70 that implement this kind of invoicing and payments through QR codes. And now I think that it's a natural evolution that Lightning Network will improve the scalability of this payment system.
Okay, maybe I can maybe stick on to that, Facundo. Maybe you can tell us what are some of the use cases that you feel Lightning will be important in the system, yeah?
I think that it's like everything in Bitcoin. What I love about Bitcoin is it's fully community driven. You have another blockchains that maybe have one person defining the roadmap, but in Bitcoin it's all about community. That's why maybe seems slow the development and evolution, but it's really from the community, and I think it's the better for the ecosystem. And I think Lightning will improve this kind of payment system between institutions. It's like at the beginning, the throughput was really slow because there were just people with their assets trying to build this second layer over Bitcoin. But I think that with this kind of events and the inclusion of more legacy financial institutions, the throughput of the whole network, the Lightning Network, will improve, and we will have like a crypto SWIFT system, kind of. And yeah, I think it's like we are growing. We are in the early stages, but we are heading to a bright future.
Maybe I can go to you, Dan. So I come from Africa, and one of the major problems we have is cross-border remittance. And Lightning came as the best solution for us, and in terms of encouraging interoperability. And maybe you can take us through how you feel, how that happens, how that occurs.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's the end state Lightning vision of everyone running non-custodial nodes on their phone and having KYC free Bitcoin and it moving absolutely freely. So personally, I like that vision, but practically, we've got to take steps to get there to mainstream normal users, get normal companies on board, highly regulated companies in a lot of cases. So we're a platform company. We power other companies behind the scenes, and our focus, at least day one, has been on actually just fiat-to-fiat remittances. So the companies that work with us don't need to know or touch Bitcoin or Lightning. We do all that for them, and then their users don't need to, day one, know or touch Bitcoin directly. So they'll just be holding dollar balances, sending it to someone in another country. They'll receive the local fiat pretty much instantly. And behind the scenes, abstracted away, we're using Lightning as that payment protocol and Bitcoin as that settlement asset to convert in and out of those fiat currencies. So I know it's not exactly the Bitcoin dream necessarily, but it is a way to get more usage of the Lightning Network practically at scale with major companies. And then once we have that inroad, that infrastructure built out, that can still be leveraged by the rest of the community for non-custodial Lightning applications. But yeah, that fiat to fiat starting point will give us those entry points, those users that we can then onboard into wider Bitcoin applications.
Well, I think realistically, a lot of people actually want to hold fiat. Maybe not in this room necessarily, but people outside of this room actually still feel comfortable holding fiat. And I think that you have to be able to support those people, but then use Lightning as kind of the bridge that glues all this together. And from there, you can start to kind of orange pill people more and have them start to see the advantages of Bitcoin and the advantages of actually holding that asset and using that asset on a daily basis. But to do that, you have to really expand it so there are viable use cases that people can actually experience it and understand it and start to get their feet a little bit wet. And I think that's kind of what Dan's alluding to, is that you start to get these companies on board. They are able to use Lightning, their users are able to hold fiat currencies, and then they can maybe branch out to holding Bitcoin once they've gotten their feet wet a little bit.
Yeah, that maybe side by side, here's the fiat fee, but if you want to just use Bitcoin directly, it's going to be cheaper because you're not going to be going in and out. So it's a way to push people towards it over time.
It's like if the final use cases is like using Lightning as a payment method from the end users, or will be the infrastructure behind the companies allowing payments, fiat payments, for example, and using this cross-border infrastructure of Lightning Network to do that? Like, okay, which will be the road? Maybe both. You can go and pay with cryptocurrency through Lightning, or maybe you are paying fiat and in the background, you are having Lightning Network doing all the job.
You've mentioned, Dan, that it's not the Bitcoin dream because Lightning is still custodial. And so since 2018, why has Lightning not been able to have wider adoption? What are these barriers that it's facing? Why haven't we had people already using Lightning to pay for their coffee, as it's usually said?
I'd start, so 5 years isn't that long for production-ready, global payment system. So I think it's made incredibly impressive progress in that relatively short period of time. But, again, to the sort of previous points, I think it has to solve a particular problem for normal users to adopt, right? We can't sell people on the evils of fractional reserve central banking to get them interested in Bitcoin, to get them to want to use Lightning, or we're never going to scale to hundreds of millions of users. So it has to, flip it around, start with what problem are people trying to solve. People like convenience. They're happy to trust people in most cases as a starting point. The large companies, tech companies that people rely on who aren't great for privacy, who maybe, we wouldn't want to use ourselves, but normal users, again, are comfortable with those trade-offs in exchange for that convenience. So giving them a point solution, paying with Lightning for your coffee versus paying with Apple Pay versus paying with cash versus a debit card is not that much better. There isn't, unless you're a Bitcoiner and you want to hold Bitcoin, there isn't really a killer use case where there's modern point-of-sale systems and payment methods. But the cross-border one, there is, because that's still pretty terrible in the traditional financial system.
And I think beyond that, Lightning has actually historically been extremely complex. And when we started at Lightspark, we talked to a bunch of exchanges, companies that are native to the Bitcoin space, native to crypto, and it's honestly just extremely difficult for them to understand Lightning, to actually integrate to it and use it. The concept of channels is completely foreign to companies that are used to dealing with L1s. So to have these companies feel like it's something they can onboard to Dan's point, you need this use case where they feel like, oh, there's an actual reason to do this, to absorb some of this complexity, and then also to abstract that complexity. Like a lot of the companies like Lightspark and others in this space are trying to abstract that complexity away and make it into a very simple interface. You can imagine like a Stripe-like interface where you can send and receive money very simply instead of having to deal with all the complexities that are under the hood. But you need an actual use case to power this and make it something that is viable for them to want to actually integrate with.
I was just about to ask you maybe on some of the user-friendly ways you're trying to make Lightning at Lightspark.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of goes back to that Stripe-like interface where you can have just this very simple send-receive flow. You don't have to worry about who do I open up channels to, how do I source inbound liquidity, do I need to pay someone to provide inbound liquidity, how do I actually route successfully and make sure that my routes are actually going to succeed and understand the whole picture of the network. There's just a lot that goes into Lightning. And at Lightspark, what we're trying to do is kind of abstract all that away. So you get just-in-time inbound liquidity. You can effectively think of it as like unbounded inbound liquidity. You have a special routing engine that actually understands the full graph, understands where the sats sit on each channel, can help route transactions more successfully, and then these SDKs that you can plug in and connect to Lightning super easily and super quickly.
Yeah, then just plug and build on top of that. Companies like Bakkt building on top of what Lightspark are abstracting away at the low level sort of protocol and liquidity level. We're then supplementing with trading and fiat on-ramps and licensing with money transmission, so that companies as the user in this case can abstract away and then can abstract away even more. And it's becoming super simple for companies to actually onboard and start using it. And then for users, I think one of the things that we announced recently with Lightspark and Ripio was UMA. So extending a human-readable way that people can send money, as Kevin mentioned at the beginning, just like sending an email, and having an open standard where you can use Lightning address type usability features that also for companies like us who are licensed can then be sure that we're complying with local regulatory laws. So for users, again, they don't want to deal with LN invoices or long strings of random numbers and letters for normal people. So Lightning addresses and UMA around that really helps the usability case.
Yeah, it's like always with this kind of technology, with payment, you have two sides. The one receiving the payments and the one doing the payments. And you never know where to start because you need to some critical mass of payers, so it's attractive to the merchant or the institution to implement this technology, and the other way around. So the people need, okay, what I can do with this technology, where I can use it. So that's the complexity that you need to develop on the institutional side and the end user side, and abstracting this complexity. In Ripio, for example, we are really blockchain company. We believe in the power of this technology, but we know that we are centralized, so we are not really, the community don't look at us with good eyes, but we know we have a function in the ecosystem. We are trying to abstract this complexity to make it more user-friendly and to make it the adoption broader and faster. Because it's like we are not holding the users. The users are free, they can, but they need an easy path to the adoption. So they are used to have a company, so they can complain if something goes wrong. And the users can grow there and move to more self-custodial options. They have that freedom, and I think that's the function that we are here trying to apply.
So I've been using a Lightning address for quite some time, and recently I actually heard from Lightspark on the universal money address. Maybe you can tell us what is UMA and how does it interact with the LNURL?
Yeah, so UMA is an extension on top of Lightning addresses and LNURL. It builds on top of those open source technologies. It itself is open source. It's basically extending it so that you have human readable addresses that you can send any type of currency to any other type of currency. So whether that is fiat or crypto, I could send US dollars to Brazilian reals. I could send Bitcoin to Ethereum. You can send between any to any. And the purpose of LNURL is to kind of be a messaging layer that sits and allows the regulated exchanges to talk between each other and to exchange information that, oh, my sender wants to send to you and they want to receive in Mexican pesos, the exchange rate's going to be X, and if you send this, then it translates over the Lightning network. So you can send US dollars to whatever other currency or vice versa, and Lightning network is just the rails that it rides on top of. And UMA is kind of a messaging layer that extends on top of LNURL Lightning addresses to give you a human readable address. It's an open, interoperable standard where you can send any to any.
So maybe, is UMA compatible with all the other Lightning addresses?
Yes, so UMA is meant to be backwards compatible with LNURL Lightning addresses. You effectively just strip off the $. So UMA addresses look like $Kevin at Ripio. You would strip off the $, and then it's backwards compatible so that it can interact with anyone who's just running base LNURL. But for example, for regulated exchanges like backed in Ripio, that they might want to exchange compliance information, it also allows you to exchange compliance information as well as the foreign exchange on like Bitcoin to whatever received currency you want.
Maybe you can tell us, for Ripio, how will UMA change how customers get to pay each other if you get to integrate it?
It will improve the experience. It's like we were talking, we have like two main challenges, like abstracting this complexity of the technology. And I think all the crypto ecosystem have a really big path in front of us to develop the experience, to improve the experience. Because now it's everything too technical for the end user, for the everyday. And I think UMA will improve that because it's something that you can tell. It's not like an invoice you have to send or show a QR code. It's something that I can tell you here and you send me money or do a payment. So that improvement in the experience, in the usability of this technology will impact the users, will increase the users of Lightning Network and this technology.
Yeah, and I think we talked a lot about remittances and cross-border, and that's kind of the holy grail and probably the big killer app. But even just interoperable P2P, right? Even in modern countries with modern payment systems, sending money between Venmo and Cash App, not possible. Venmo and PayPal, not possible, even though they're owned by the same company. And so having the ability to have Dan at Cash App and Kevin at Venmo, and then we can just send money to each other rather than having to do the song and dance or downloading the different apps and sharing together. And we can just have, just like an email address, Gmail sends to Yahoo, they all work with each other, it doesn't matter which one you're using. and now money becomes as free as email does or as information does as well. So I think the implications of that, taking the friction away for P2P, being able to use the same infrastructure and same addressing standard for remittance, and maybe for streaming payments and other types of different use cases as well, will be a great way to onboard normal users for a simple use case before we start to bring them into the wider possibilities with Lightning generally.
So how has the integration been so far since it was introduced?
We already integrate UMA for getting your UMA tag. So you have your name, you can receive. And we are finishing, I think in the next few releases, we will have the send of any token through UMA.
So as I mentioned, we're a platform company, so we'll probably be ready to start onboarding our clients, early next year, targeting January. And so then they'll need some time to onboard before they can offer UMAs to their customers. But yeah, as a platform company, we'll be making it super simple for them to onboard and offer it as well.
So, of course, now I have to, the elephant in the room. UMA involves regulation and compliance, and as Bitcoiners, that's one word we never want to interact with, especially the compliance bit. What are your opinions on it in terms of how the community will look at universal money address?
I think it's interesting because you can keep it small and keep compliance out, keep big companies out, and it's probably not going to grow at the rate that you might want it to. To actually have this accelerate and go to an audience far beyond what it's at today, I think you have to start to involve some of these bigger players that actually are regulated institutions, and they have to deal with certain compliance things. I think that's how you actually kind of pour fuel on the fire and have it actually really go to something major. There are a lot of people, again, that don't necessarily want to hold crypto or don't understand crypto, and I think this is how you kind of get them on board. They can then move to non-custodial wallets at a later point if they want to, but this gets them to a place where they can be on regulated exchanges, on regulated entities that can actually abide by the rules that they're required to abide by. But it doesn't mean that everyone else has to. It still is interoperable with standard LN URL, so you can still have entities that are on fully non-custodial wallets and interact with it, but this kind of adds to it and increases the audience. It doesn't limit the audience, it actually increases it quite a bit because you have all these new players that can onboard and can actually participate. And the alternative would be that these regulated entities form their own network where only they are on it and they know they're regulated, only they interact. Instead, we're building it on something that is actually an open protocol that others can interact with as well. So it's really strictly increasing the audience and kind of bringing more people onto Lightning.
Yeah, I think that's a super key point, and it's not changing Lightning, it's not forcing Lightning and LLURL to have KYC. It's an optional additional extra for companies who are highly regulated who need it. And focusing on onboarding tens of millions or hundreds of millions of customers, particularly in the United States, where it's super highly regulated. We have to get our compliance teams comfortable, we have to get our regulators comfortable, we have to get a lot of different stakeholders comfortable with using Lightning, and UMA makes it a lot easier for us and a lot easier for our partners to get our own compliance teams and regulators more comfortable with that, to get those incremental users who wouldn't have used it anyway, as you're saying, right? So it's purely optional addition, and it's purely additive in terms of opening up the market for Lightning to companies and users who wouldn't necessarily use it as is today. So yeah, I think it really accelerates, even if you don't want to use the compliance side, it's going to bring a lot of money and investment and companies into Lightning, and that will be beneficial for the wider space as well. So yeah, I'd see it as optional for those like us who are super highly regulated and who do need tools like this to use to grow the overall market.
Yeah, I think that all the cryptocurrencies and all the crypto ecosystem changed the game, that you have the opt-in option, the opt-out of the traditional financial system. So it's a matter of choice. You can choose opt out from the traditional financial system. You can opt out from all the KYC. You have that option. You have that freedom. That's what blockchain brings to the people. And as the guy said, I think we are moving to an hybrid system. This technology is for everyone, even institutions. And the institutions working in this traditional financial system, they need information, they need to be regulated, they need to have KYC, KYP, or KYB. So that also will improve because all the ecosystem will grow. We will have more transaction, we will have more liquidity, the channels will have more capacity to bigger payments, to move more funds. So I think this is something that will improve the whole ecosystem. It's not like it's you or them. We need all the participants here in the ecosystem to grow because they have bigger liquidity. You have the option to opt out from the KYC and all the traditional regulations. So I think it's not like you or me. We are to an hybrid system where we can coexist and live together and improve the ecosystem together.
So I think my curiosity is more on maybe Lightspark and also Dan on your end. The different regulations for different countries, how can you talk about a universal money address and expect all the different regulations to form into being one universal money address? Yeah.
So part of the UMA protocol is that you kind of exchange what information you actually need. So you can request that you get like travel rule information or information about certain things that you need to comply with your specific regulations. So it's meant to be a protocol where you can exchange whatever is necessary for the required jurisdictions.
Yeah, I'd say one of the beautiful things about using the Lightning Network as that open interoperable network under the hood as well is that if you were a company trying to build a global remittance product, you have to go country by country and regulation by regulation, whereas now it is an open permissionless system that anyone can use UMAs or anyone can use Lightning. And so we operate just in the US today, we're expanding, but we'll be a US on-ramp. And we'll comply with local US regulations. And then Ripio in Argentina complying locally, and we can just work together. So the combination of all the different companies that will be joining the network means that we don't all have to figure out every single problem. We can all serve our local areas and connect together to build interoperable solutions.
Yeah, as Ripio has business in all the countries in Latin America, they comply to the regulations of each country. So through UMA, we can simplify the interaction between the countries. We have a lot of people moving from Venezuela to Argentina, from Argentina to Brazil. I'm from Argentina, I'm living here in Sao Paulo. So this kind of regulation, and we still move money through these borders. And you have that easiest mind that you don't are infringing any law or regulations sending money, I don't know, to my family in Argentina, because I know we are compliant.
I think if you said, hey, tomorrow we can turn on 100 million more users onto Lightning, 500 million users onto Lightning, I don't think anyone would be against that. I think that people would be really excited if that happened. And I think this is a way to kind of crack that door open and start to onboard the next 500 million users on the Lightning and actually make it into a useful protocol that people can use in their daily lives. And if that means that regulated institutions need to be part of it, I think that's really the only way to start to crack that door open wider and bring more people to the Lightning Network, at least at like such a quick rate. And I think this is how you start to do that.
So we can, you touched on self-custody, and of course that's going to be an issue in terms of implementing UMA, but then also encouraging people towards self-custody. But as you said, not so many people want self-custody. But can we gear education towards that? Do you see us being able to do that?
I mean, that's part of why we're backwards compatible with LNURL. I think we will also be exploring things like Bolt 12 for this, so that you don't necessarily need to have a VASP on the other side, like a virtual asset service provider, like a big company, that you can do this fully non-custodially, run your own wallet, it'll be interoperable with you. Even the big exchanges can fall back to using normal LNURL Lightning addresses. It's fully interoperable, so it's an open protocol that really can be anyone to anyone, but it also supports the big institutions that need the compliance thing. So if they need it, they can interact between each other and exchange that information. They can also interact with non-custodial entities. So it's really increasing that audience to a much wider audience than it had before.
Yeah, that's super key to me as well, is, sort of see concentric circles of these networks within each other, right? So you might have banks in the United States who will only send to UMA-supported, fully KYC'd people at another bank, but then you'll have a layer down where people have a slightly lower regulatory burden or a higher risk tolerance that will open it up to any UMAs at any exchanges, and then beyond that, UMAs plus Lightning addresses. Beyond that, companies can just have normal, LNURL implementations as well. So different companies, depending on their needs, can enable different pieces. There's a user experience potential challenge with that, but you'll have entities that will only transact within certain verified pieces, but some within that network potentially that allow you to move out and beyond. So having that backward compatibility and that way to access the broader Lightning network, depending on the risk tolerances of each of the different entities that the users are using.
Yeah, and the underlying, the technology under UMA is Lightning Network, still Lightning Network. So you have that backward compatibility, so you always have an option. I don't know, maybe you have a need or had another wallet with UMA and another without, and all is running over Lightning Network. So it's the same technology, it's the same experience, security of that technology, but you are choosing different experiences. So we are using your UMA tag or you are using a traditional Lightning routing URL.
So maybe you can tell us each, what do you see as the future of the Lightning Network and in terms of changing the financial landscape?
I think that really expanding the user base by giving them concrete use cases that are really valuable. And I think UMA is one step in that direction. I think another is looking at what other use cases there are that are really novel. And that's things like streaming money, where I could have a content creator who has some video, and for each few seconds I watch, I stream a fraction of a penny. And you look at something like ACH in the US, where it's going to cost you 15 cents to do a transaction, take 3 days, that's not really feasible. But if you look at something like Lightning, that actually is something that you can do. You can stream money in real time. It's just like data packets in that respect. And that opens up new use cases that you couldn't have had previously. Or even like an Uber driver who gets paid in real time. For every ride that you give, you get paid immediately afterwards, and you can pay for your gas, you can pay for your groceries, utilities, and you can do that in real time. I think once you start to have more of these use cases on Lightning and have more users on Lightning, and you can connect more people that way, there's a lot of power in what you can build.
So I've been with Backed for a couple of years. Before that, for the 8 years before that, I was in the blockchain, wider blockchain space. And one of the things I found within that space was people wanted to use blockchain, right? It was I want the solution before I know what problem I'm trying to solve. And they started with, well, our board's asking about blockchain and consultants are talking about blockchain and jumping into blockchain first before they necessarily knew what problem they were trying to solve. So one of the things I like as a product person is to just forget the technology and put that very much behind the scenes and lead with those use cases. So I don't think people are going to be necessarily, I'm talking short term here, 5 years, 10 years maybe, People won't necessarily know they'll be using Lightning, and it'll be just like they don't know they're using TCP/IP or SMTP or any of these protocols that normal people don't need to know or care about. For the short term, it will be another protocol behind the scenes that enhances the internet to add money transmission. And on top of that, it will start fiat to fiat and then hopefully shift more gradually to Bitcoin over time.
Yeah, I see two development paths. One is like the infrastructure for institutions, so institution can move money through borders or maybe within a country, but like as I said, a blockchain, a crypto SWIFT system, so they can move money. Another is like Chris said, is like integrating this technology in everyday use cases. Because we are now, the interest in blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies in Bitcoin is growing, so we are a lot of potential users, but they are asking what I can do with this, where I can use it. So we need to integrate this technology in the final use cases.
So I myself, working with a Lightning company, I've been able to see some of the challenges. I'm hoping that as development goes by, they can be able to be solved. Sometimes it can get really frustrating. So at least right now we have self-custody Lightning solutions in place. So I hope we can be able to also integrate such cases. But so far, so good. I'm looking forward to seeing OMA implemented more and how it can be able to, push us forward in terms of Lightning adoption. Any last words by another panel?
Yeah, I think, as you said, there's going to be different use cases with different requirements, and that's okay, right? If a non-KYC use case in countries that's permissible, then fine to solve a certain problem. If you're a regulated financial institution, different set of problems. So it's open source technology, it's permissionless, and it's all of these different use cases will be honed and tuned depending on their specific needs and the needs of the participants operating within that. And that will require some additional optional pieces that other use cases perhaps don't. But it grows the overall pie for everybody, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think everyone in this room is convinced that Bitcoin is great, but people outside this room maybe not so much, and you need to get them into the ecosystem and start to see the real benefits and start to see the real use cases. And that's what we're trying to do, is grow the network to be something even larger than it is today, and really to accelerate that growth and make it into something where it actually is beneficial for people, where fees are dramatically reduced, they're able to send money cross-border at an extremely low rate, instantly, have instant settlement, this open network where anyone can connect to it. We retain the properties of Lightning Bitcoin, but we expand it so that people can actually use it that aren't necessarily native to Bitcoin and don't necessarily want to know or understand Bitcoin. And then from there, they can start to see the benefits of it and start to really use the network as it was originally intended.
Yeah, I think that everyone here is an ambassador of Bitcoin and this technology. And we need to listen to people that they are curious, or they didn't heard about Bitcoin, about all the goods that this technology brings to the community, to the humanity. So I think we have a lot of space to grow, but we need to listen to the people that is not already on board.
Thank you for listening to us today. Thank you for my wonderful panel. Thank you, Brazil.
Thank you.